if you're working together to figure out what is best, or maybe you're working together to get to a good place, does it really matter who you choose to work with? That's kind of what's at the center of today's reading. Today we're looking at 2 Chronicles 19 to 23. And it's interesting because it picks right up from where we left off yesterday. So yesterday we kind of saw the end of Ahab. We saw Jehoshaphat kind of working together with Ahab. That is interesting because Ahab was a super, super wicked king, and Jehoshaphat was the king of Judah, who should really know better than to be working with this wicked king. And so the reading opens up. Actually, the heading is on Jehoshaphat's reforms, but that is because there is an incredible army of people from several different nations coming against Judah.
Dun, dun, dun. I feel like there's so many instances in these stories where, like, I mean, you could just look back over and over again of just, like, too many people reigning and leading for all the wrong reasons. And every time you get wrapped up in something, somebody's too prideful, somebody's like worshiping other idols, somebody's involved in killing off all their family members because they want to be in charge. It's like so ugly. And like, thank the Lord that Jesus came and like, he is the King of Kings. And I think that name for him is just like, it just makes so much more sense to me now. Like, I've always said that as a kid, like the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Like, wow, he actually is the King of Kings because we no longer are bound to all these men who just like mess up all the time. Like when we looked over the list of kings, there was like 4 out of many that were considered good kings. And it's just like, oh, they are bad news.
I think what's really interesting, and I've said this before, is that the nation clearly follows the heart of the king.
Right.
And I think that should help us make the case for like, man, we really, really need godly leaders. Mm-hmm. We don't really want to be completely hands off about this stuff. We want to be invested in leaders who are godly, and also like God sees the heart of these people. Mm-hmm. So even the ones that seem like they are but aren't, they don't end well.
I know, like,
and they mislead the people.
Was
Jehoshaphat? Jehoshaphat, I think, because he's being confronted by this giant army. Like, Judah is kind of getting off track because they're kind of hanging out with Ahab and doing some wicked things. Then this army is coming to Judah, and Jehoshaphat's like, okay, you know what? We're all going to seek the Lord. And so everybody turns to seek the Lord.
And they actually follow him for like a hot second. It's so great.
They follow him. God gives him victory. Jehoshaphat is weird because it seems like he gets like a double ending. So if you look at verses 24 to 34, it seems like Jehoshaphat did really good things, and he kind of cleaned up some of the wickedness that was going on. Yeah. But then if you read 35, it's like, well, actually, he was wicked.
Well, yeah, because it said after this, so after all those great things, in verse 35 of chapter 20, he joined with the king of Israel, who acted wickedly.
Who was wicked in the line of Ahab.
Oh, man. So, like, it's just like, it's such a bummer. After all that, he still went back anyway. Still wicked.
And what are they doing? They're building like an incredible navy. They're building all these ships. Yeah. Why are they doing that? It seems like he's trying to make his own name great.
Right.
And his alliances with these wicked kings, it's not good.
Never
and
ends
so that's why I kind of opened with that question. Like, does it matter who you line yourself up with? Yes, it does. And it significantly matters about like what their heart is like, what their goals are like, who they're trying to honor. Because this alliance with Ahab, you can point to this alliance with Ahab in all the 5 chapters that we read, because it just has a lasting effect over all these people. One, you see these political alliances between wicked kings in Israel with sort of okay kings in Judah, and it makes these sort of okay kings more and more wicked. Mm-hmm. So you see kind of this friendship here. What was it? It was the one king of Judah was traveling over to see the other king of Israel, and he was put to death. You see that the one ruler is married to a relative of Omri, who was a wicked king in Israel. These alliances are just a mess. They really are.
I think bottom, like, I think from like their actual like bottom of their heart, they know that like they're not good decisions, but maybe it'll look good if we're like trying to make amends. but they know it's not going to work. They know
Yeah.
it's wrong. So anyway, we move into chapter 21 then. So Jehoshaphat dies and his son takes over. And I'm like, okay, well, at least Jehoshaphat was kind of like making good decisions. Maybe that'll pass on. And as we read, it's just like
Nope.
the son's name is, sorry, I just lost it. Jehoram. Okay. Terrible dude. Jehoram has 6 other siblings, all other brothers of Jehoshaphat, and he kills all of them off. So
Because
dad
they're-
dies, and he's like, nope, get rid of all these
They're
other guys.
political rivals.
Yes, and like that is just so disgusting to me.
He also starts rebuilding high places.
Yep. Actually, I had started that as well. So he kills off all his family so that they can't like step in and do anything. Then he also starts like building back all of the things that his father had just taken down. And I mean, the Lord, it said that he didn't want to, he was evil, but the Lord was not willing to destroy them because he wanted the house of David to continue.
He was faithful to his covenant.
Right.
One of the things we definitely don't want to miss, Athaliah is the wife of King Jehoram, and Athaliah is the daughter of Ahab. So you don't get more alliance than that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds pretty messed up.
So this king of Judah, he marries a daughter of Ahab. This means that her parents are literally Ahab and Jezebel.
Yeah.
Super evil, super wicked. You think that didn't carry over to their
Right.
kids? Well, if you had any question about that, we know it carried over to their kids because it was Athaliah encouraging him to build these high places. So this wickedness is everywhere.
But what's crazy is they do have children then, but then the Lord says once those children come about, the Lord's like, okay, I will be punishing you now because you are acting like all of your ancestors, your fathers before you with all these evil, wicked things. I'm going to send in a great plague on your people, on your children, on your wives, on your possessions. You're going to have a severe sickness, which sounds horrible.
Yeah.
The disease where your bowels will come outside of your body day by day. And it's going to be a terrible, agonizing death. And that actually happens. Like, every single part of it happens. And this was actually the one who was prophesying this to him was Elijah in the form of a letter. So, hey, throwback to Elijah. He's just sending letters now,
There you go.
which is kind of crazy. Because he has a little bit of history with Jezebel.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's just kind of weird. He just like interjects. But anyway, after this, he's struck with this disease. There was no son that was left to him except Jehoaz. I'm not sure if I'm even saying that right. However, so there's one left, which is interesting.
So there is a little bit of confusion right after Jehoram dies. Like the Lord judges him, he dies. The king that becomes king after him is his son, Ahaziah. Now that can be confusing because just a couple of verses before he dies, you see that his youngest son was named Jehoahaz. But then at the beginning of chapter 22, you see that his youngest son is named Ahaziah. This is the same person. He was known by two different names. So if you're just...
Why is that?
I don't know. But if you're reading through that, it does get like, wait a minute, are these two different people? No, they're not two different people. They're just one guy known by the same name. This is Jehoram's youngest son. And further on in the text, he will pretty much be known as Ahaziah, but he's only king for 1 year. He's not even around very long because he kind of dies abruptly.
Which, ding, ding, ding. What does that tell you? Because as soon as I hear he only reigned for 1 year, I'm like, shoot, he must have been really messed up. But when you look down at verse 22, talking about his reign, it says, he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done. So, like, to me, that's just like, well, I guess there you go. If you're going to be evil, the Lord's going to judge you for your evilness, especially as a leader of the people of Israel. Like, dude, come on. Actually, I suppose in this moment, it's the leader of people of Judah.
Yeah, it is different kingdom.
It's very hard once they're separated. It's like, guys, it's really hard to keep track of who's
I think
who.
the main thing to keep in mind here is that Ahab, unfortunately, his reign and his family has an incredible amount of influence across the kingdoms at this time. And one of the crazy things you'll see happen is that Athaliah, when Ahaziah dies, Athaliah realizes that this is her moment. So she kills off all the potential successors. Like, she's killing off her grandkids.
That is so gross.
It's gross because she wants to have power and she wants to reign over Judah. And most likely she wants to continue the wickedness that has been happening.
Technically, she's like kind of pulling like a... Well, no, I guess I was going to say she's kind of pulling a Saul moment where like David's actually the king and she's like, or he's like playing like he still is. It's kind of going on here because there is one son that is like hidden away to make it seem like she killed them all off while she's still reigning. Like the people are like kind of revolting. They're like, nope, we're not going to let this happen. So they like save one of those babies.
7 years. So they save Joash. He goes and hides with Jehoiada, who's the high priest.
Yes.
And Athaliah reigns as, I guess, queen over Judah for around 7 years. And
isn't that kind of nice? Like, it kind of feels like, oh, at least there's somebody like doing the right thing. Like, these weird underdogs are like trying to keep somebody safe.
What's funny, it's the priests. It's the priests who are like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
This is not right. And so we see a coup take shape in kind of the end sort of 22 and then all of 23.
It gives off some of those like Pharaoh vibes.
It's what's interesting is that you get here like the men of God, the priests, the military commanders, the fathers of the families are like, hey, you are not going to be the ruler of this nation. And so they rise up, and there is a coup, and Athaliah is executed, and we get Joash kind of rising to become leader in Judah. So it's a rocky couple of 5 chapters. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of names thrown around. But ultimately, do the alliances that they make matter? Yeah, they do. Because Jehoshaphat starts out kind of with this like rickety alliance with Ahab, and it affects his family in a significant way. It affects his kingdom in a significant way. And ultimately, we see like the wickedness that's happening just having an incredible impact across several years of leadership. And so I think a good takeaway is be careful who you are aligning yourself with. And I know that a lot of times like partnership is a good thing. Working together for a good end is a good thing. But I think these couple of chapters here show that this was not a good alliance to have. And it led to very insane things happening in the nation. It drew their hearts away from God. And it was not good.
So all of this effort is being put into keeping Joash like safe to keep leading the people on. Unfortunately, he will also continue to be destructive and sinful and like merciless to many people.
You're jumping ahead of us, but
I sure am, but I think it's just like you kind of hold out thinking like, yes, maybe this will be the moment.
What's interesting is that Jehoiada is kind of like the center of what it means to be faithful.
Yeah.
And Joash seems to do half decent as long as Jehoiada is around.
Right.
And when Jehoiada dies, Joash kind of loses his mind because he's lost his trustworthy advisor, which is a thread that we keep pulling here and we keep seeing it, is that when you surround yourself with evil advisors, you end up doing evil things. Now that's, you're jumping ahead of us. We'll see that here in the next couple of days. But for today, there's a lot of alliances. There's a lot of leaders and kings and queens.
But I think too, not only do you need, I think it's twofold. Not only do you need to have in leadership positions good, solid counsel around you, you also need to be extremely like disciplined in knowing the Lord and his plan also. Like it needs to go both ways. Like, yeah, even though eventually we're going to see things fall to the wayside, for Pete's sake, like Joash should be like really considering the counsel of the Lord on his own part too. And I think he just kind of gives it up because he's been like grandfathered along the whole time.
So we are seeing God being faithful to his covenant. Athaliah is not from David's line. And that is one of the concerns that the priests have. But we also just continues to see the theme of, this grander narrative that we want to continue to seek the Lord. We want to continue to honor the Lord. And when we don't honor the Lord, chaos happens. And so that is applicable across time. Anytime nations and kingdoms are drawn away from God, they are oftentimes drawn into chaos. So if people are telling you that your life will be better or the nation will be better if we move away from God, history tells us that is simply not true, because chaos just goes everywhere when you're living for anything but the Lord. So we'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we are jumping into Obadiah, which should be interesting.
Short and sweet.
And we'll see you then.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.